All right, we're diving headlong into game week here as Pitt, North Carolina, just a few days away. The Panthers going to Chapel Hill on Saturday for a noon kickoff against the Tar Heels. Going to be a big one. Lots to look at with that game. We'll be talking about it all week. We started the conversation yesterday on the Monday edition of the Morning Pitt, and we're going to keep it going here on Tuesday. And as we talk about what Pitt's going to need to do at North Carolina, part of that conversation, part of it's about the Tar Heels and what you got to do to beat North Carolina and kind of how that matchup looks. But another part is kind of looking at what Pitt did in the first 4 games. Aside from winning and going 4-0, I think it's relevant to look at and talk about what Pitt did in those first 4 games to get a sense of what the Panthers need to improve, sort of a self-scout type of thing of what they need to do to get better. Not just the things they need to do in the specific matchup with North Carolina. They got to stop the run. They got to get up the quarterback, protect the quarterback, all that kind of thing. But what the first 4 games showed us about Pitt, what they need to focus on and improve the most, and what they needed to spend the last week, the off week, working on the most. Some of the biggest issues I see with this team and points of emphasis for them going forward, they're going to be key for this weekend's trip to Chapel Hill, but also the Cal game after that, and the Syracuse game after that, and then that 5-game gauntlet through the month of November. Some of the biggest issues facing the team, some of the biggest things they need to work on and improve, and what they needed to spend the off week emphasizing and getting better at as they head into the ACC schedule and the 8 games that really count and will decide what this season will be. That's what we're going to talk about here on the Tuesday edition of the Morning Pitt. So let's jump into it on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, I mentioned that Cal game there. As just talking about the schedule going forward. Got a start time for that game announced yesterday. They announced the Cal game at Pitt on October 12th is going to kick off at 3:30 p.m. So you get a little mid-afternoon, adventure at Acrisure Stadium that day. No announcement on TV yet, ESPN or ACC network. So basically, it sounds like, well, if Pitt wins this weekend, or maybe if Cal wins this weekend, I forget who Cal is playing. I should have the ACC composite schedule pulled up here. Give me 1 second to bring that up. But, it's one of these things where you say, okay, well, if, Pitt and Cal both win, they're going to put that game on ESPN because you would think that game will be, 2 ranked opponents. I think a pretty decent chance. I would say if Pitt beats North Carolina, like we've been saying, if Pitt beats North Carolina, then I would imagine they'll be ranked. Oh, Cal is actually off this weekend. No, they're not. They're hosting Miami. What am I talking about? That's like the biggest game of the night. How could I draw a blank on that? The game day? Okay, I should just erase all of this so I don't look like a complete idiot forgetting the college game day is going to be at Cal for when they host Miami on Saturday night, which is going to be a lot of fun because then we all have a great game to watch in the evening. You know what I mean? That late night game is relevant to Pitt as far as being an ACC contest. When was the last time there was an ACC game that kicked off at 10 or 10:30 on a Saturday night? Don't look it up. It doesn't matter. But you get my point. If Pitt and Cal both win, that game's on ESPN. Maybe if just Cal wins or just Pitt wins, that game is on ESPN. Either way, what's relevant for all of us who are going to be going to the game at Acrisure Stadium on Saturday, it's a 3:30 kickoff. And that's the key. I've spoken before about what I think about 3:30 kickoffs. I would honestly prefer noon, but 3:30 is pretty cool. That sets up for a pretty cool environment, a pretty cool atmosphere. Looking forward to that one in a couple of weeks against Cal. But first things first is North Carolina this weekend. And first things first, I got to ask you to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You see it right there. The subscribe button's right down there. So click that thing, and then you'll never miss any of our Pitt video content here on YouTube. Of course, the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com and message boards to interact with hundreds and thousands of other Pitt fans. All day, every day, Pitt fans are hanging out talking about Pitt sports at Panther-Lair.com. You want to be a part of that as well. The place to do it, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. All right, let's talk about some big issues facing this team. Not big issues, but things that they need to have improved on in the off week things they need to be better at in the next 8 games than they were in the first 4 games. Some key sort of just points of emphasis, really, and some things they needed to work on this off week. And the first one that comes to mind for me on offense, and maybe my biggest issue with this offense thus far, maybe my only issue with this offense thus far, because they've done everything really well. They're number 2 in the ACC in scoring, number 2 in the ACC in yards per game. Eli Holstein's a top 5, top 3 quarterback in the ACC production-wise. Desmond Reed is still one of the top backs in the ACC, despite only playing 3 games so far. There's a lot working really well. I love what the receivers have been doing. I think Kanate Mumfield is having his best season yet. I think Raphael Williams has been a really nice addition. I think he's going to get a 100-yard game at some point in here. Sincere Lee got his 100-yard game against Youngstown State, getting the 82-yard catch and filling out there. We haven't really seen the tight ends get unleashed, but Gavin Bartholomew's going to have a big role, and he's going to win a game for Pitt. He's going to make some game-winning plays at some point coming up here over the next 8 games. Kenny Johnson is a guy who, he's been targeted a lot. I think he's he's top 3 in targets on the team, maybe top 2. He might be right behind Kanate Mumfield, and that's exactly where he should be. Keep feeding him because he is really good, and I think playing at a really high level this year. He's made some of the best catches of anyone on the team this year. So I really like what's happening there. And the offensive line is giving up too much pressure on Eli Holstein. There's no question about that, but I can't sit here and say, well, the pass protection, they should work on the pass protection. They should work on pass protection every day. They should get better at that, and that certainly should have been a focus during the off week. I'm sure it was, and that ties into everything else that's happening on the offense. I do think, and this is just an aside, and I mentioned this from time to time. Somebody just brought it up on the message boards. We had a conversation about it. I don't think they've used Eli Holstein's legs as part of the scheme as much as they could. And I'm not talking about quarterback draws and runs. They've done some of those things. Those have obviously worked really well. But Holstein's good at getting out of the getting out of the pocket, making a throw on the run. But we haven't really seen, look, you can see the picture right there is Eli Holstein gearing up to make a throw on the run. We haven't really seen him, I don't think, and I don't have the stats to back this up, and I don't break down the film or anything, but do you feel like you've seen Eli Holstein rolling out, going on bootlegs, naked bootlegs, sprint outs, or any of those kinds of things where he's, intentionally leaving the pocket, using his legs, and making throws? I don't feel like that's been part of it. There have been scrambles, and then he throws it. There have obviously been draws where he just runs. There's obviously been times when he's had either a designed run or a scramble that picks up yards. But we haven't really seen the designed bootlegs and rollouts. And I think if you're having issues with pass protection, that's something, that can help. Just put them on the run. Put them on the run right off the bat. Maybe if a defense is being overly aggressive, you're going to get more opportunities downfield, more opportunities for the quarterback to scramble. And Eli Holstein can make those plays. He can make those throws. He's good enough with his legs to get out there and do those things. I'm a little surprised we haven't seen more of it. And I think we should see more of it. But that's an aside. That's not one of my main things here that I'm going to talk about, but that's something to keep an eye on. It'd be curious if they roll a little bit more of that out, no pun intended. If they roll out some more of those things in this game on Saturday or the rest of the games going forward. One issue I do have with this offense, and one area where I think they've struggled that, I know I've talked about it a bunch. I wrote about it in the 3-2-1 column on Friday, and I'm going to write about it again this week when we go inside the numbers. I'm going to have numbers that kind of dig into this, some of the stats. Third down just has not been a strength for this offense. Now, you look at it, and you look at Pitt's official stats online. Oh, they're 20 of 43. Actually, you look at Pitt's official stats online, they're 19 of 43. And I can't figure out why they've screwed this up. But I can go through and I count, and for whatever reason they say that Pitt went 5 of 9 on third down against Youngstown State. I've looked through that box score like 10 times, and it looks to me like they went 6 of 9 on third down. Either way, whether they're 19 of 43 or 20 of 43, you're north of 45%. Or it's like 44% if you're 19 of 43, 46% if you're 20 of 43. My point is, if you're 44% or better on third down, you're doing pretty well. That's good. That's a good third down percentage. So you're like, Chris, why did you just waste our time? You know, like you were just telling us, oh, the third down is such an issue. And then you give us the stats, and they're really good. I forget where they are nationally, but 44% is a good third down conversion percentage. And it is. But here's the rub. The 44% on the season. When you cut it down to the 2 games against power conference opponents, you cut it down to Cincinnati and West Virginia, they're 5 of 19. They were 1 of 8 on third down against West Virginia. 4 of 11 on third down against Cincinnati. 5 of 19 combined in those 2 games. That's 26%. That's bad. 44%, 45%, 46%. Those are pretty good percentages on third down. Even if you're in the high 30s, you're pretty effective. Once you get down toward the low 30s, now you're not very good on third down. And if you're in the 20s, percentage-wise, you're bad on third down. I mean, 20s, if you're 20% on third down and Pitt's 26%, let's say if you're 25% on third down, I mean, you can do the basic math here. You're converting 3 out of every 12? If you attempt 12 third downs in a game, you're converting 3. That's just not that's not a recipe for sustaining drives, for staying on the field, and ultimately for scoring points and scoring touchdowns. Cade Bell talked about they want to lead the nation in first downs gained, and they've done a great job gaining first downs. And this is the one thing I would say as a counter to that, my complaining about third down here is, yes, they're only 5 of 19 on third down against West Virginia and Cincinnati, but in the crunch time of those games, the second half, the fourth quarter, I'm not going to say they were great on third down because they weren't, but they did a really good job at avoiding third down altogether, getting big gains on first down, converting on second down, getting first downs on first down. And so they're moving the ball down the field. Obviously, when you're second in the ACC in points per game, second in the ACC in yards per game, you're obviously doing something right. This third down issue is not sinking them, but it is a major issue they need to address. On the third downs, they've run 27 pass plays. Eli Holstein's thrown 23 passes. He was sacked twice, and Nate Yarnell has thrown 2 passes on third down. Holstein on third down, and this is probably the biggest issue with Eli Holstein so far. On third down, he's 12 of 23. Just barely over 50% for 110 yards, 3 touchdowns. So that's good, right? He's thrown 3 of his 12 touchdowns on third down. He's also got an interception. But of his 23 pass attempts and 12 completions, only 9 have gained first downs. And that includes the 3 touchdowns. So 9 out of 23, you're not getting the kind of percentage you're hoping for out of that. At all, I think. Main targets on third down, Konate Mumpfield and Kenny Johnson both have been targeted 5 times on third down. They both have 3 catches, and all 3 of those catches converted and gained a first down. Sincere Lee and Kenny. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Konate Mumpfield and Raphael Williams have both been targeted 5 times on third down. They both have 3 catches, and all of their catches have gained first downs. Kenny Johnson has been targeted 4 times on third down. He's caught 3 passes, all 3 gained a first down. Sincere Lee has been targeted 4 times on third down. He's got 1 catch. It did not gain a first down. Gavin Bartholomew, 2 targets on third down, 1 catch, didn't gain a first down. Desmond Reed, 2 targets on third down, 1 catch, did not gain a first down. And Benny Hasselrigg as a target on third down. He caught it, but it did not gain a first down. So your main guys, Konate Mumpfield, Raphael Williams, Kenny Johnson, have 3 conversions each, which I think is probably what you would expect. That's 14 total targets, and they've got 9 conversions. I mean, those are your main guys. You would expect them to be making the plays, and they are. My main issue is this. They need to be better at extending drives, right? I mean, they need to be better on third down to keep their drives going. That's going to make their offense even more potent, more explosive, gain more yards, score more points, all those things that you want offenses to do. This is maybe the biggest hole in their offense right now, outside of maybe pass protection, although that's probably going to be a part of it here as well. As like I said, he's been sacked. Holstein's been sacked twice on third down. He's also got 3 rushing attempts. I'd have to look and see if they were scrambles or design runs. He's got 2 first downs gained, but pass protection is a little bit of an issue. Third down as a whole, they need to be better. So that's maybe my biggest issue on offense right now. My biggest issue on defense is, I think, probably what you would say, the pass rush. And this is the thing they needed to work on the most. To some extent, you have the players you have, and either they're going to be good or they're not. That's just kind of how it is. But it's got to be a point of emphasis. Nate Matlack, he's got 3 sacks this season. That's not bad. Pitt as a whole has 11 sacks. I think they're 6th in the ACC with 11 sacks this year. 5 out of those 11 were against Kent State. They had 3 against Cincinnati, 3 against West Virginia, none against Youngstown State. They were getting rid of the ball really quickly. But Nate Matlack's got 3 out of Pitt's 11 sacks. Linebackers have 4.5 of those 11 sacks. Let me actually, I want to double check that stat. I want to make sure that it's still 4.5 sacks for the linebackers. Yeah, 1 for Kyle Lewis, 2.5 for Rasheem Biles. That's 3.5 plus 1 for Brandon George is 4.5. I don't think any other linebackers have. Okay, so 4.5 sacks for Pitt's linebackers, which is a nice total. You know what I mean? So Nate Matlack, 3 sacks. All right, you take that through 4 games. Linebackers, 4.5 sacks. All right, you take that through 4 games. But the rest of the defensive line, like all other defensive linemen other than Nate Matlack combined, have 3.5 sacks. And none of them has more than 1 sack individually. And when you look at the defensive tackles, Isaiah Neal has 0.5 sacks. And that's it for the guys in the interior. Through 4 games, Pitt's defensive tackles have combined. The whole position group has combined for 4 tackles for loss and 9 pressures, according to Pro Football Focus. It's just like you can't do that. You can't have the defensive tackles produce 2 pressures per game and 0.5 sacks every 4 games. You can't. You need more pressure, and the defensive ends have to do more for sure. Like I said, Nate Matlack's got 3 sacks. The rest of the defensive line has 3.5 or 4.5 or whatever it is. You need more out of Jimmy Scott. You know what I mean? Sincere Edwards is coming along as a freshman. He's got to keep improving. Chief Borders could chip in here somewhere. Maybe they'll get Sean Fitzsimmons back. Maybe that'll help. Pat Narduzzi said he's getting closer and could be ready to play this weekend. Maybe that'll help get the pass rush. Maybe young guys growing like Isaiah Neal can help. If Nick James is healthy, he had to leave the Youngstown State game after 4 plays. If he's healthy, he can help the cause. But you need to get pressure up front. This is a defense that's built on getting pressure. The linebackers have been playing really well. The secondary has been good enough. Not great, but good enough. You've got to get that pressure up front. And that's easily, far and away, the biggest issue on defense. And it's about getting pressure on the quarterback, and it's also about making plays against the running game. And this week's game with Amarian Hampton and Jacoby Criswell, the running back and quarterback respectively at North Carolina, is going to be huge. Like that element, defensive play up front is going to be huge. Can they stop the running game with Hampton? Can they get after Criswell in the backfield? And they'll blitz and they'll send the linebackers and they'll be aggressive. But at some point, you've got to win a one-on-one matchup along the line of scrimmage. And Pitt hasn't been doing enough of that. They haven't been doing enough at all. I didn't look up their pass rush win rate, but I don't want to incur the wrath of the entire Steelers media. They're already in a bad mood because the Steelers lost. So, you don't want to get those. You don't want to get on their wrong side, right? Just kidding. We love those guys. Got to get after the quarterback. Got to make plays in the backfield. Got to stop the run, and so much of that comes down to the play of the defensive line. So those are probably my 2 biggest issues. Obviously they needed to get healthy over the off week. Desmond Reed needs to get as close to 100% as possible. You need to get a guy like Fitzsimmons back. Need to get Nick James back on the field. After he, like I say, seemed to get hurt against Youngstown State. Sean Fitzsimmons. Wait, I already mentioned him. Key Thompson, would be cool if he could play. Give Brandon George a little bit of a break, although George, I think, has played admirably at middle linebacker. But, getting guys healthy. But on offense, they need to convert third downs. And on defense, they need to get some push up front. So that's that for today. Going to have a lot of stuff getting ready for Pitt, North Carolina this Saturday. It's a big game. We talked about it yesterday. Really excited to look forward to it. Still really excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see how this one goes down. It's a huge game for Pitt, and it's a real test. It's a real opportunity to show what they're made of, to show what they can do. I think they showed a lot at Cincinnati. They showed a lot against against West Virginia. Now they get a different directional school. They need to go to North Carolina and show what they can do there. All right, make sure you like this video and subscribe. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com to never miss any of our Pitt video content. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And, of course, check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope your week is off to a great start. Enjoy your Tuesday, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pit right here on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com.